Well, hello and welcome. I'm here with Colleen,
Good morning.
and Danny is here supporting us today, but she's sick. So, Danny, I won't make you unmute. And welcome to you too, as well. And welcome to everybody who is joining us live on this episode is our monthly Q&A episode. It is a little early this month because, well, when this posts on YouTube and on our podcast pages, we will already be there, but Colleen and I are leaving for Disneyland tomorrow. So we had to do kind of, and between that and teaching, our month is a little weird. So we had to do the Q&A a little early this month. So this is a space kind of dedicated just to have time to answer questions, time to talk about different Reiki subjects. We always love these conversations that we end up having in these Q&As. So we're very glad to be here. Just a few short announcements. The first one is that if you do join any of our live events, we are time changing here in the States, or most of the States. There's a few that don't. This Saturday, which is the 8th, from the 8th to the 9th. So it's overnight. So if you join our distance Reiki share, or we'll join our Q&A next month, not everybody time changes. Not everybody time changes at the same time. So just an awareness that our live events might be at a different time. If you're taking any classes with us, like Next Step or any of the animal Reiki classes coming up, then we will just a heads up with that. We'll make those announcements and stuff in those emails, but just so you all know. And speaking of that, we have Animal Reiki coming up on the 15th and 16th of March. That's 1 and 2. And then Master on the 21st, Animal Reiki Master on the 21st and through the 23rd. And then Human Reiki classes in April, levels 1 and 2, Master and Karuna Reiki Master. All of those are Holy Fire or Usui Tibetan Holy Fire classes. And you can go to our page, classes page on Reiki Lifestyle. Also, Colleen is teaching in-person animal Reiki at Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York in May. So you can go to our destination classes to check out that. All right. I think that is good for announcements. And so what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and go into the invocation, and then we will get started with questions.
Okay. And so the invocation is usually me at this time, or is me today at this time is more accurate. Anyway, as we have always said, with a caveat with the invocation, sometimes they can go very deep. And so if you are not in a position to go deep or go into a deep relaxed state with Reiki, then listen to this later. Fast forward to the part where we get into the questions and answers today. So, with all that said, go ahead and get comfortable for those of you that are here live and those of you that are able listening later. You can get comfortable and prepare for the invocation. They're always channeled. Robin and I both channel our invocations, and so I never know if it's going to be light or go deep. So, anyway, here we go. Close your eyes and take some deep breaths. Place your hands comfortably on your body. And breathe in the light of Reiki as it fills the space around you from the highest heavens. Flowing into the space around you, flowing outward from that space, rippling out from you and rippling in towards you. And as you breathe in the light of Reiki. It travels in on your breath and awakens your life force and light force, awakens your vitality and vibrancy. Breathe deeply as the light of Reiki and the power of love fills your breath, and it flows into your body, and the power of love and all of creation, from the earth to the heavens, to the infinite realms of the infinite ones, The power of love fills your breath. It's what you're made of. And that is revealed at the core of your being. As you breathe in the light and the power of the divine mind. And from the divine mind and the highest heavens, in the infinite realms of the infinite ones, pure consciousness, pure wisdom flows into your breath and awakens within you. Awakening within you the alignment of your body and the earth, the alignment of your body and your intellect with creation. Your divine spirit and human spirit unify right here within you in your mind, in your inner awareness, awakening your spirit, awakening your ability to hear your own intuition, imagination, to be able to perceive your instincts, your inner awareness, to hear your own inner truth, to be awake and present with you. And as you breathe in the light of the divine mind, it aligns your whole body with the earth and with the heavens, flows through your body and awakens your gut brain, your heart brain, your head brain, with your divine brain, your earth brain. Breathe deeply now and receive. And as you receive the light and the power of the divine heart. And your divine heart is revealed, shining within you, in front of you, and behind you, and on each side, above you, below you, and within you. Your spirit ignites and is awake within you in your own perceptions of yourself. And you take this moment and you think to yourself about who you are, who I am. As love awakens within you, your higher thought and higher consciousness is present. The pure essence of your heart and pure consciousness within you. And when you listen, you can hear the heartbeat of the earth, and the heartbeat of the earth is beating in the same rhythm as your own heart. And when you listen, you can hear the heartbeat of creation, and it's beating in the same rhythm as your own heart. One light, one breath, your light, your breath, awake and present for you within you. The light of the earth rises through you, flowing upward through your earth star, your root chakra, your central channel, out beyond your crown, your soul star, aligning with the earth, the moon, the solar system, the sun and the stars and the planets, the universe, creation itself at the infinite realms, with the infinite ones. And your whole body aligns, and you remember now that this is where you are right now in the journey of your soul, from where you came in the infinite realms to this manifestation. You remember that your body is made of the earth to give you life, for your spirit to have this presence, your soul to have these experiences. And as you breathe in, divine compassion fills your breath and awakens divine compassion within you, for you. And like the tree of life, your roots grow deeply into the ground around you, and your branches reach to the heavens in a perfect balance, below, above, within, receiving the wisdom and the knowledge and the nourishment of the earth, receiving the wisdom and the knowledge and the nourishment of creation, and the wisdom and the knowledge and the nourishment from the ancient ones, as the wisdom flows through your branches like the tree of life, awakening within you, and your perceptions expand to your inner awareness, the beautiful beings of the light that are here with you. Your beloved and sacred ones are here with you. Your spiritual team is here with you, the angels and the archangels. The divine animal kingdom is here, and the spirit of the earth. The ascended masters are here, sisters and brothers in the light, Lady Wisdom, and all the manifestations, awakening within you your perceptions and inner awareness. Awake, your spirit, awake. And then sometimes it can seem as if it's all hidden from your view. The ways and the worries of the world and the burdens that you may be carrying can sometimes hide it all and make you worry or feel angry, deeply concerned within. And in this moment, you take this time for you to be about you, to be in touch with you and the depth of you. And so you breathe in the light of Reiki, and it travels in on your breath, and it begins to envelop and surround those ways and worries of the world and the burdens that you carry, to lift them from you, to dissolve the cords and connectors and attachments that may connect them to you. As the light illuminates the worries and carries them into the light for you, where they can be healed and the burden of healing them released from you. And as you breathe in the light, and it awakens that power of love that you know you are. And you remember through it all, this is where you are on your soul's journey, and your soul is love. Your divine mind is right here in your human mind. Your human nature is love, in the depth and the core of your being always. Even in the challenging emotions, even when it seems as if the ways and the worries of the world are too heavy to carry. Love is who you are. Love surrounds you on the earth, and the earth is abundant and beautiful. You are beautiful, and you remember the glory of you as your light grows and shines, your heart light and your divine mind. And your spirit is ignited and awake within you. And you go within so you can hear you. and know you. Your sovereignty is revealed. Your beautiful spirit revealed. And awake within you is your inner truth and your inner authority, who you are. So breathe in the light of grace, the power and authority of compassion. And like the tree of life, your roots grow around you with strength and stability. Your branches reach to the heavens, and you receive the wisdom above, the wisdom below. Awake the wisdom within you, present for you. And the light shines in your heart for lightness of heart. So look inside and say thank you to you. Take this time to honor you, who you truly are. Even when the emotions seem hard, who you truly are is this beautiful being of the light right now in this moment. And you remember. And so say thank you to you. They say thank you to each other. Our circle is always divinely ordered, all who are here live and those who listen later. Thank you. Community is so powerful to share the love that we have, contributing to the wellness in the world in this very important time. As we establish the stability and the balance and the power of love and align with the earth and with creation, to co-create with love. We say thank you to the beautiful beings of the light that join us and guide us and assist us. And they invite us to receive their guidance. The light of Reiki, thank you. And these beautiful 12 heavens. Lady Wisdom, thank you for your presence here. And thank you again to the teachers who come before us, the descendants who come after. We're here today in the lineage of light bringers. And we're listening and contributing and establishing these ways at this time on the earth. Thank you. So it is. And as always, Robin and I need to come back pretty quickly because we are recording. So, um, Robin, if you want to go ahead.
Yes, sounds good. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started and jump into some questions. The first one is, give me just one second. I was giving Reiki and a distance session to my friend who is a Reiki 1 and 2 practitioner, and she started to have a big headache during the session. She said she felt like it needed to support me, and she put her hands on her head to treat the headache. I didn't feel any special intuition to treat her head. The Reiki flow for me was not intensive on her head. Rather, actually, she was working mostly on the fifth and second chakra. And she said that her headache disappeared during the Reiki session, but we were both wondering what it was, as it's never happened to either of us before. So I think there's a little bit more, but I think that that's kind of the basis of the question.
For me?
Well, I can start if you want. I saw you open. I saw you.
Oh,
So I was making sure that it wasn't.
I'm still kind of altered, but I can
Oh,
answer.
okay, perfect. Well, I think, this is a pretty common question in Reiki because it is known to be a stress reduction technique. It's known to be a technique that helps with life force and vitality, and overall making us feel better, moving us into our wellness, and helping with some of the different mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual issues that we might be experiencing. So when these kinds of things happen, I think it's pretty surprising to people because of this idea that we have of Reiki and what it is so much of the time, as all of those previous things that I just said, that when we have an experience that is less than that or different from that, it's like, wait a second. What is this? Is something wrong? Did I do something wrong? Is something wrong with the Reiki? Things like that, those kinds of questions. But actually, these experiences are common enough. One of the terms that's used for these kinds of experiences is a healing crisis. And I feel like sometimes it can actually be a crisis. Other times it's more symptoms like this, where somebody can get a headache, somebody doesn't feel well. Maybe there are times where emotionally it can be challenging, where we have really big releases, where we might feel kind of bad in all different ways. And to know that that very much can happen. Absolutely. So the biggest thing to know is of course, I just said that it is uh, more normal than you might think, and B, that it will pass. That as even in this question, that eventually the headache went away and it will pass. And it doesn't mean that you're going to experience a session or giving yourself Reiki or a Reiki class like this every single time, that you can, that you might experience this again at some point. And to know a part of what, the best explanation that we can come up with it is that a part of it is that we are releasing in order to make space for new. And so when we are releasing that, it can come into symptoms that are kind of like a detox symptom. And so that looks so many different ways, again, whether that's physical or emotional, that those detoxes are happening in order to release the things that aren't of that higher vibration of Reiki, because every session, every um, class, they are, entraining us to those higher vibrations of Reiki. And so when we have some of those lower density releasings that need to happen, they manifest all different ways. And so as that releasing happens, it's not always the most comfortable thing. It can be quite uncomfortable. And over time, because you can experience it often enough, not like I said, it's not like super common. It's just you can have them over time of practice. You start to kind of know what that is. So, if I receive a Reiki session, I can have somewhat of an uncomfortable experience. It's like, okay, I'm just releasing what needs to be released. And I know that it's not going to last. And what's coming on the back of that is something even more beautiful, something that's even more healed or empowered within myself that the Reiki energy is doing with it.
Well, and I think I would add to that too, because part of the question, I think, was also about the perceiving of the headache. So the one person perceived the headache that the other person didn't feel she was having. But it did turn out she had the flu the next day.
That
And
was a different, actually, that was a different part of the situation.
oh,
Hmm.
oh, okay.
Oh, wait, relevant for the case. No, you're right, Colleen.
Okay, so,
You're right. Sorry. I thought that was a
okay.
wholly different situation. Repeating the question. My
Well,
apologies.
no, that's okay. Anyway, so the next day, the one who did not perceive the headache actually got the headache. So the day before, the one who was perceiving it, um, I'm trying to wrap around how I want to say it. One of the things that really happens with Reiki energy is telepathic communication opens, and the ability to perceive what is happening for the other can happen. So this is just one example of that experience for them. And because it was also uncomfortable, like Robin said, when it's uncomfortable, you can, start to think, uh-oh, what is this and why is it coming through this way? Also, for the person who was perceiving the headache, they may have you, if you're listening, you may have this style of intuition, which is you can feel in your body what is happening for another person. In this case, before it even happened for that other person. So that's another piece of this, is to start to recognize how Reiki is showing you what it is doing. Because we're always, even if we are like in that telepathic communication stage, or even if we are psychically receiving impressions, all of it is Reiki showing us how it is working. We are not making that happen through our ability to observe it. We're not directing it because we're observing it. So in this case, where she may have been observing it through her own intuition style, which is, in this case, I don't know if it's always that way, but in this case, where she was physically feeling the pain in her body, that actually was the other person the next day, the person that she was working with. I think I feel kind of confused about how I'm saying this, and so I'm not sure if I'm saying it clearly.
Well, let me read the second part of the question. You're
Okay.
being clear to me, but that doesn't mean anything because I know what you're
Well,
saying.
that's true.
I'm not sure if it's relevant for the case. It happened one day before I started to have the flu with huge headaches and a fever. And my 6-year-old son already had the flu on that day and he had a headache and temperature. He was staying next to me and he told me afterwards that he was also participating in our Reiki share, sending Reiki with me. My interpretation of the question was that that was another situation where it happened. But what you're saying is that the other person, the receiver that got the headache, was potentially having that intuitive process for the giver who was with their 6-year-old son. And so the feeling is a clairsentience feeling that she was potentially picking up that um, on that what was coming down the road for her. So I think that's what you're saying if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah, I think that does clarify it. And also to clarify that further, the person who perceived the headache is actually also a Reiki practitioner. So they were working together. It wasn't just like one person receiving a session and the other person. So they were working together. So In that case, I also want to clarify that just because she could perceive the headache that was happening for the other person, she did not take that on. It did not become her headache. She was perceiving it through that clairsentience, which is an intuition style. And for those of you that have that intuition style, to be aware of it, that you may feel, for instance, if and I have some of that. It's not like my primary intuition style is clairvoyance, but I can also often feel in my body what is happening for the client. Like I can have a physical sensation. If their knee is injured, I might feel it in my knee, but it doesn't last. It's not staying there. It's an intuition style. So it's very different than, say, taking it on, or now I am taking on their pain and doing something with their pain. What it really is a style of intuition and observing how Reiki is doing the work through that style of intuition. I hope we made sense. So
We'll see.
we'll see. Laura's given us a thumbs up.
Thanks,
So we're making sense, Laura. Thank you.
Laura.
Good.
Happens from time to time. Well, I think I messed that one up with the confusion of the question. So
Well,
uh,
you were answering the first part of the question. I was answering the second part of the question. So
too good.
Magda says thank you. So maybe we did okay.
All
Well,
right.
as we say all the time, this is real life Reiki. So this is just us authentically.
Okay. So the next question is can Reiki Lifestyle create a monthly business class for Reiki and energy work in general? So we do have our monthly classes. I know this person knows about them. So we do have our monthly classes, which are Next Up Reiki and Explore the 12 Heavens. And those are energy work classes. So we do have those. For business classes, they are actually on our list. We say that quite often, that they are on the list that we would like to create a business course. I don't think it would be necessarily like a live business course like our other courses, but maybe rather a self-study, self-paced type course. But we are not in the position to be able to do that yet. And I don't know how long that will take, but we know we've always wanted to. And so we would love to do that. It's definitely something both of us are passionate about in general. And we certainly both have different skills in different areas that would be very helpful, we think, to a lot of different people. And so it's again, it's on our list, but we're not quite there yet with creating it. In the meantime, there are other resources that we do refer people to. We like Pam Allen LeBlanc's book, which is the Reiki Business book that is available on Amazon. So you can get it there. We can put some of these resources in our show notes. So if you wouldn't mind writing that down, Danny, that would be great. We also, there are people that are focusing on this subject within their business. So, gosh, her name's going to escape me right now. Mary Raposo. We've had her on the podcast. So she focuses on some of these things. And then also, what about the Business Summit, Colleen?
Christian.
Christian. Yeah. And we've had
Yeah.
him on the.
Standing Stones Reiki. Jenny Stinson with the Peace Room. She does monthly mentoring. We also did quite a section on Reiki business last year on our YouTube channel.
Mm.
So you can go back and look at that too. I think we did that for maybe even 2 or 3 months every week in the Distance Reiki Share. We talked about different business aspects. I will tell you though, from my perspective, And yes, as Robin said, it's absolutely on our list. I personally have learned so much through some of the resources that are focused on small business development. So not just Reiki small business development, but also small business development to, in any type of business. So your community colleges often have courses on it that are not accreditation courses, but they are people who are helping small businesses. They often have mentors. The SBA, Small Business Association.gov, has free courses. Stanford University has some free courses. And I will tell you, one of my most current places to learn about business is on YouTube. We watch YouTube all the time. I watch YouTube about different business things. And one of the reasons that I like it is because I find particular people that are very current and very much, like what is happening right now. However, I will say we are already well established. And so, there's the beginning part of it, there's the middle part of it. And then the truth of a Reiki business is that it is ongoing forever. Like the business practices are ongoing forever. So just like saying, yes, that's on our list, we have a really long list. And also because, the other thing with Reiki is even though it's a small business, it's a heartfelt, soul-centered, professional business. So it's not the same as every other small business that, say, for instance, is offering a service or offering a product or something like that, because it's all heart-centered. And the basis of it is, how do we help people? How do we help animals? How do we contribute wellness in the world? What are the tools that we have? What are the resources we can provide? Um, and so the other thing that I would say with it is just to know it is an ongoing process. We both happen to love business practices. Like I like the subject, I like technology. So that's really beneficial. Social media, still always working on that, although as I'm getting more comfortable or, with what the meaning of it is, because that's the other thing for all of us, doing these kinds of businesses. It's always like, what is that heart meaning behind it all? So once some of that starts to settle in a little bit more clearly, that can be really helpful for you. That's one of the things that is really good about Pam LeBlanc's book, the Reiki Business book, is she takes you into more of the heart-centered information that you're going to be discovering. And then also you apply it to specific business practices. So all of that said, um, again, it's such a big subject, and we are aware of the need of it and the importance of it also, because the business structure, interestingly enough, if you look at the history of Reiki through Usui Sensei, all of the significant historical figures actually presented Reiki in a business style. Even though it was a spiritual business practice, it's still, Usui, I think, was specific in creating it with that structure rather than, say, a spiritual practice that would be more of a religion, more of a practice in that style. And so the energy of it is there, and we know that that is the way we can be really effective because we can then also provide more Reiki if we actually have an established business with it, where we have time set aside for people and a structure established so that we can work with people. And then the other part of it is you will always be working um, on yourself. So that's the other piece that happens in it. This whole month, we're talking about spiritual awakening, and that is part of it that also happens and is also ongoing, that it will take you to that deeper meaning within you. It heals the parts of you that are also, the needs of others. And so it really works beautifully together in that kind of a structure. And I think sometimes people feel as if Reiki shouldn't be a business, but the structure of it really, like, especially when you take it into the depth of the meaning of it behind it, it really is a beautiful combination of that personal development, personal growth, that then you are contributing into the world with others. The one final thing I'd say, and then Robin, I know you probably have things to answer, but um, is that to me, there's a difference between a Reiki practice and a Reiki business. So you can have Reiki practices and not want to have a Reiki business. And if you have a Reiki business, you will have Reiki practices. So the Reiki business and practice goes together, but also many of you will have your Reiki practice in a particular way that is meaningful for you, exactly the way you want it. And maybe you just want a part-time business, or maybe you don't want a business at all, or maybe you want your Reiki for volunteering or for your family or your personal growth. And so all the different ways that it works is powerful for you. We did a YouTube in the series we did last year on YouTube, and you can go back to our channel on Reiki Lifestyle and find it. I think we did it from April through uh, maybe March through May, like pretty, no,
I don't know. Sorry, I was saying I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, something. We did a long time of
Yeah.
it. One of the journeys that we did in during that time was meet the spirit of your Reiki practice or Reiki business. And that one I think is really helpful because it takes you into your inner truth about what that is for you. And that to me is the foundation of where you start. When we did I just did the summit with Christian Standing Stones Reiki last November. And one of the first things that I said, and this is true with Robin and I, and Danny and when we work together as a team, we start everything with an invocation to get Reiki involved in all of our decision making, the clarity of our path, why we're doing what we're doing, to center us into the meaning behind it that is internal for each of us, and then external and how it contributes, into the world. And that to me is step one, is activate Reiki, even if you take 2 minutes to do it. A lot of times we go into the depth of invocations, like what was in this podcast today. Um, but that would be one of the first foundations of advice that I would give you, is make sure you activate Reiki however you need to do it in the moment when you are in business development.
It was back in March because Danny just posted the YouTube video of meeting the spirit of your Reiki practice, and it was the journey, and it was last March. It was March 30th. So Um, yeah, I agree. Also, definiteness of purpose sustained over time always produces results. It's another one, like that trust that eventually it will be, things will come to fruition, and they're not always exactly how you pictured them. Took us a year and a half to get our website done. A year and a half. And as soon as like 3 weeks before it was about to launch, we changed the entire thing. And it was the right decision, but it can look different than what you think. And you just kind of keep going with things, and to know that those kinds of things are very normal as well. Um, I second what Colleen said. I train myself on so many different things. There's a lot of things that I don't know how to do it when I start out, and I train myself on things through YouTube, through different tutorials. Now with chat, that's a huge thing because you don't have to go searching for the exact answer. For the most part, you can just ask it and it will let you know how to do something. So that's really helpful as well. So there's a lot of tools out there and that's more of the kind of left brain aspects of having a business. So there's the spiritual aspects of having a Reiki business as well, and Colleen kind of already talked about those things. But on the left brain aspects, the actual production work of it all, there's a lot of resources out there to help with it. And one of the things Danny said in the chat, and Colleen, you touched upon this too, but I wanted to read what she said as well, is Reiki business can look different for everyone, not necessarily um, a Reiki like space, like where you're giving Reiki sessions, but it might be through nursing or a hairdresser or a therapist or an admin or, different things like that. So that's very true as well. As far as like the actual course is concerned, I sure hope so. I sure hope we can get that done because I know both of us, as Colleen said, are very passionate about this subject and have skill sets in different areas when it comes to this. The other thing you have to remember too, when it comes to some of these businesses that you see that might produce a lot, we have teams. Like we have a team, and Colleen and I are partners. And when she's not available to do something, I'm there to do it, and vice versa. And so that's a really big piece of it that might feel like there's pressure to keep up with that. And yet there's two of us that are, the who we are in the business, and then we have a team with us. We have Danny who works with us here at Reiki Lifestyle. She's a practitioner for us. She helps on the admin side of things. So we have that support. We have other people that work with us, Sarah and Sue, that are support. So, we also have support. And when you see some of these maybe bigger businesses with it, it's true for them as well. They have support, they have people doing the admin work, they have people doing, kind of behind the scenes doing some of the things. And so that is a big difference with it as well. And when you are especially first starting out, you have to do everything yourself. And it's not to say that Colleen and I don't do a lot. We work a lot, but when you're first starting out, it is kind of everything is coming from you. And, if you just take these podcasts, for examples, or the distance Reiki share, for example, if one of us is teaching, the other one can do them. Right? So if Colleen's teaching a class, I can do the Q&A. If I need to skip a distance Reiki share because my daughter has an assembly I need to be at, she can do it. Next week, we're going to be out of town, and Danny's going to be leading the charge on the distance Reiki share. And that's a really big difference too. So just if there's any comparison within that, also know that there are some of those things that changes that landscape in that comparison aspect. That yes, we started out there as well, but also how you see us today is very different than where it started out. So just know that again, that definiteness of purpose sustained over time does produce results. And so just really, keep going with it too. All right. Well, I think we are good to go to the next question, Colleen. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. When I'm angry, I know Reiki will help me, but I feel like I can't feel the connection. I feel maybe unworthiness or not spiritual enough place to channel the Reiki energy I need. It feels wrong to approach it when I can't even get a grip on the first precept. Precept. Any suggestions on how to move through this? Also, on a lighter note, why does it always seem like when I'm just starting to master a grade 5 Earth school lesson, the universe gives me a college freshman test? Oh, so true. I think this is such a great question too. We've had really good questions today. I mean, we always do, but these are such good questions. We also actually talked about this, I think, when we did our podcast together, Colleen, we talked about this a little bit more too, because, great question. Also, like it is such a human thing. And I don't know, do we ever master it unless we're an ascended master? I saw you start to talk, Colleen, so I'll let you start on this one and then I'll come in after you.
Well, one of the things that I think I've personally come to the conclusion, and this is, we just talked about this in our podcast. Robin and I did one together without a guest, and we were talking about spiritual awakening. And for me, one of the things that I realized in my spiritual awakening, quote unquote, I say that in a very loose term, and what that means for me is I had an expectation that when I was spiritual, I would no longer have these kinds of emotions. I wouldn't have anger or worry. I would be Zen all the time. And as Yusui Sensei achieved that state of Anshin Ditsume, like, okay, I'm going to be in perfect peace and in my purpose every day. And so I think I created an unrealistic expectation and pressure for myself. And in addition, at the time that I was kind of going through this self-doubt around all of it, like exactly what you're saying in this question, the self-doubt that comes in, like, why can't I be in that place if I'm so, quote, spiritual? And at the time, it was the time when the law of attraction came out. I had a lot of misunderstandings about what that meant, thinking the same thing, that I had to be in perfect thought all the time in order to attract or to manifest the life that I wanted. And what I discovered, here's my personal discovery through this whole process, and this is some years of personal development and growth, is that my soul came here to be a human being, to have human consciousness, and to have a human spirit, human nature, as well as my divine spirit and divine nature. And so, what I learned with it, or what I think I know, let me put it that way, is more clear, is that I live, the earth is a place of duality. Both things exist. You can be angry and be at peace, and you can have inner peace on the inside and anger on the outside. And, there's a lot to navigate through today, the changes in the world happening, not even to get into all of that because that's a whole other subject. But I had to realize that I'm still going to have human nature. And I'm here to have human nature and to allow for the idea that, yeah, sometimes I'm going to be angry. Sometimes I'm going to worry. I particularly prefer not to be in those emotional states. So I use Reiki as my tool to help me get out of them. But I also think there's one thing to really consider with it. What is the anger about? And is it trying to tell you something? Is there something that you need to know about it? Because to just get rid of it is not always the answer. The answer may be that, well, I need to look at this and find out, is it giving me a message? Is there a change I need to make? Is there something I need to know? Or is it just anger and I need to release it and be done with it? But as far as the self-worth with being able to receive Reiki or even give Reiki to others or to feel like you can share it with others, I think that is what is meant by divine compassion. We are not required to be perfect vessels of enlightenment in order for Reiki to flow through us, or for others. And it is trying to teach us that. I think that's one of the things, that earning it, deserving it. I have to do everything right in order for this, whatever spirituality a person is in, to be able to receive from love, to receive from that universal life force energy. It's trying to teach us it's not required. And I feel like that was one of the most important lessons that Reiki really helped me personally with in this spiritual awakening when we use that term. And I'm using that term because we're talking about it in our distance Reiki share all through March. So those are Tuesday mornings, and you can go back and find them on our podcasts and YouTube. But that's the subject we're talking about. So it brought it to my attention from that lens, like, okay, if I am to observe my own personal spiritual awakening, first of all, what does that even mean? But second of all, what it finally meant to me was like, I'm still here to be human, and I get to be. And it's okay if I have emotions. It's okay if I need to work through my stuff. Sometimes that is what it's about. What's the growth that's going to come from this? And also, in this case, you working through your anger may teach you a compassion that can help somebody else. It may teach you something you know about the subject that you can later share with somebody else. I don't typically have a lot of anger. I haven't, I've been fortunate not to have that. I was raised with a really, like, my father was a rageaholic. Like, he was into his anger. And I don't have a lot of blame or, a lot of trauma or anything anymore. I've worked through all of it. But I was certainly raised in a way that anger was a normal part of my childhood and household. And I naturally think, as a personality, I don't have it, or a lot of it, and I don't like it. That's the other thing, is mostly I'm pretty uncomfortable with the feeling of anger. So I use my tools to move through it, but I've also learned to listen. Like, okay, what's this about? Why? And do I need to know, or do I need to just let it go? So, in short, just be you the way you are right now. Allow the Reiki energy to come in. You do not have to deserve it, feel it, earn it. It just doesn't have those requirements. And I think that's the first thing it's trying to teach us, is we have so much of that training that we have to earn it and deserve it, and have the self-worth for it. And most of all, we have to behave it every day, all of our actions, all our behaviors. Same with kindness. Our mantra has been stay stable, be kind. And, that's another one. Sometimes I don't feel stable and I don't feel kind. Most of the time, I'm still going to act that way. And most of the time, that is my natural state of being that I prefer. And so when I'm out of balance or out of alignment with that, I'll just invite Reiki. And I can't say I've let go of all guilt over when I'm not who I want to be or feel how I think I should feel. Um, Guilt is another one. Like, what's that about? You know, I truly can look at my life and I think I actually don't really have anything to be guilty about. And my mom was always funny. She would always say, just don't be guilty. So, it's a funny one, but again, it's another human thing, and we're gonna be. And let Reiki help you just navigate through it all right where you are. Just for today. Thank you. Sarah wrote in the chat. Just for today. Sometimes it's just for this 1 minute. Yeah. Go ahead, Robin.
If Reiki only worked when we were all in a state of perfect peace, Reiki wouldn't be available to anybody.
There's the summary.
Even the Dalai Lama said, if you think that I am so peaceful, that just ask my staff. So if the Dalai Lama can't get it figured out fully, then, you know, what hope do the rest of us have when it comes down to it? And I wish that I was able to live in the space that the Dalai Lama is in probably 90% of the time, you know. And that's the thing seriously, if we were all there, Reiki wouldn't spread, Reiki wouldn't, be what it is, because all of us have these moments, these emotions. And same thing to this person, like, yeah, there are times where you're like, boy, I did not act as I would hoped I would act in that moment. I am a fiery Aries, and so there can be some times where that happens as well. And, there's some apologizing that needs to happen. And I, if Reiki wasn't there for people who have these emotions, then I wouldn't be able to use it because I'm human. And I'm like Colleen, I live, the majority of my life and um trying to be kind and gentle and compassionate and not angry, and because frankly I just that I don't want to live there, really, is where it comes down to. It's like but we have those times, we all do. And one of the parts of this question was um, that you feel unworthy of it. And actually, it's the opposite of, it's not that we need to be in a place before Reiki works, is that Reiki meets us where we're at, and that Reiki helps us to love ourselves even through our human emotions. And what's funny is I almost said flaws. And yes, there are things that we all want growth and expansion on, and to move towards those places where we are loving kindness, loving awareness in all aspects of our life. That's a part of the things that attracts us to Reiki. It's a part of the things that keeps us going in these modalities, is the goal to be in those places as much as possible. But it's actually kind of the opposite of that aspect of feeling unworthy. It's actually, no, wait, Reiki is here to help us through those times. Reiki is here to meet us there through those times, rather that we can't not practice it when we're in that space. That's actually where we need it most. That's actually where it comes in for us the most, to help us support us through those times. So I think that is, and it's frustrating. So we all know that feeling too, of, we've experienced those times where we do feel peaceful, where we do feel zen, where we do see the God spark and interconnectedness of all things, where we are in our expression of our compassion and that unifying element that is love and, Reiki. So we felt that, and it can be frustrating when we're not that. When we are like in some of those lower frequencies, density feelings, spaces. So I mean, I totally get that. It's like I did not act in a very enlightened way today. So I'm like, I want to keep that other feeling all the time. I want to be in that place all the time. I think that's why so many of us do this work, because we've experienced that and it's so beautiful and so amazing. And when we can't hold that, I think that that's a part of the frustration with it. But how do we love ourselves anyway? How do we love ourselves through that? Can we sit with that? And as Colleen says, is there information behind it? Are there things in our life that maybe lent to that, or past lives, or, ancestral history, things like that, that lent to those emotions? As Colleen said, like, also, we came here to be human, and there's divinity in some of those. Um, there's divinity in some of those emotions. There's divinity in grief. There's divinity in some of those emotions as well, because there is that duality within it. There is that experience to also know the difference and also work with ourselves and growth and expansion. And so, um, a lot of compassion for you too, because I think that including ourselves, so many people can identify with this question, like, oh gosh, am I just not, why did I have that behavior? Why did I have that emotion when I am in judgment of other people? Or, I think we talked about this on the podcast too, which will be out in a couple of weeks. I don't know the exact date off the top of my head. It'll be out in a couple of weeks. Why did I gossip about that person? And I'm not a big gossiper, like it does, but it happens. I can be in judgment of people. It happens. And I catch it and I think, well, let's not do that, you know. But that's where we bring in Reiki, because Reiki helps us to entrain to those higher frequencies. And it helps us to, you know, okay, release the things. Why did I experience judgment about that person? Why did I have that? And, recognizing that mirror, or just like, okay, this was human, just let it go. Like, you don't have to have a huge attachment to it. Don't do it next time, but just let it go rather than like diving into it as well. There's that. Oh, shoot, I did that again. Okay, here we go again with trying to better myself, trying to bring in those higher frequencies, trying to bring in love and compassion and those kinds of things as well. Um, and so, just also that gentleness with yourself, that even asking these questions show that you are in that growth period or expansion period that we're all in. So it's not just you, it's that we're all in. But just as even asking these questions is a beautiful thing. Like, gosh, can I just release some of this anger? When I find myself angry, like, what do I do about that? And that's a huge piece, right? That's like kind of a step that we're all trying to get to, of how do I continue this betterment of myself? How do I continue more to live more and more in that frequency of love? And I was listening to the author of the telepathy tapes on a recent podcast. She was on a podcast being interviewed about her podcast, the telepathy tapes. And the person asked her, how do the um, the people on the telepathy tapes, the telepathic communication, non verbal autistic people, how do they define love? Because they hold that high frequency of love. And they said anything that unifies. And I just think I've just been rolling that around in my head. Anything that unifies, and really listening into that and how it adds to my own version of love. And we are all trying to hold those frequencies more and more in our daily lives, in our spiritual practices. And so when we're asking ourselves these questions, when we're looking at it, when we're asking Reiki, come in and help, because really that's what is going to come in and help in it, because we can give you our thoughts and our own experiences and our own path around it, but also going into your own answers. And that's where Reiki can support you. Allow Reiki to come in and support you through that process rather than saying, I'm going to, I'm not good enough for it. It's the opposite.
Well, and I would add, Magda, I like what you wrote too. When it's really hard, it's enough. She said scream, but you can also just ask Reiki, help. I receive. And I truly, those two things, I remember a story with it. I can picture myself because I was so angry and I was so resistant at the time, like in a really big, like angry and resistance. And I remembered like, I'm not even going to call in Reiki. Like that's the place I was in. And I was like, okay. And I said the power symbol, just once. And about 20 minutes later, I started to just kind of feel a little better. And I was like, okay. And I'll add in the mental emotional symbol. And I started to feel better. And then adding in the other symbols, it helped me get through that resistance to where I could even invite Reiki. That's that's the place I was in. And it wasn't even so much like I didn't feel like I deserved it. It was like I was resistant, like I am not going to do it. I am so mad I'm not doing it. And so that was just that particular process. And I remember another time I was with a friend of mine, and it was one of those times that I just needed peace. And she was in a rant, like like she was expressing her anger. And I also knew she needed to, but it was really hard in the moment. And I remember in the moment, like, okay, what do I do? Thinking I'm going to send her Reiki. And all of a sudden it was like, oh no. And I invited the distance symbol in Honsha. Um, and I watched it take me deeper into myself, shift my heart energy. And within minutes, not even minutes, all of a sudden she stopped, took a deep breath, and went, oh, I guess I needed that. And so, what I'm adding to what Magda said here, just inviting Reiki, there are so many times I have learned now that when I'm in those states, I just ask Reiki and I'll say, I receive. And sometimes I'm in the blah, blah, blah stuff in my head and I'll stop and think, wait, hold on. I'm not going to be able to figure this out. I'm turning it over and over and over in my head. And so I just stop, invite Reiki, and I receive and allow it to do the work to shift me for me. So a lot of times that's the other thing. I think we feel like we not only in order to deserve it, earn it, be worthy of it, we have to spend a length of time in it and do everything right in order for it to provide or to for us to receive it or to engage in it. And that's the whole thing. That's where I really learned about Reiki on the fly because I needed it to be like in those moments, I needed it to be able to be easy and quick and simple. And then that opened for the time when I could spend the length of time in it and understanding that Reiki's not requiring the extra time. We need that the energy responds to us just simply because we've invited it and asked it, however we do that. So the I receive part of it, that is now my go-to, and I'll think of maybe one of the symbols, and or I might just think okay, Reiki on, I receive, and keep going about what I'm doing, or even if I have the time to be able to do some self Reiki. For those of you that are Holy Fire, we have the Holy Fire meditation. That is one of my big go-tos. So sometimes too, the other answer for that is to find your way that, we say, we'll invite Reiki. What's your way that you want to do that that's going to be the most effective for you in the moment? Because if you're in that place, sometimes like the thought of, okay, now I'm going to go into stillness and I'm going to sit and I'm going to receive and I'm going to, do all my self Reiki. You're just not in the place for that. So allow yourself to use it on the fly.
And if you forget, because that happens too, send it back to
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
Say that again because I think I spoke in the middle of it.
Oh, I said, and if you forget, because that happens too, like if you forget to activate Reiki or Reiki on the fly, send it back to yourself in that moment, because that can help too. And also, we can all forget sometimes. So,
Mhm. Yeah, there's a comment in here that, the good enough. Oof. Oh my gosh. Because actually, Robin, when you were talking about judgment of others, I think more than anything, I have to work on my own self-judgment.
yeah.
That's where, when you say judgment, I think immediately of like, okay, my own self-judgment and all the little subtle ways that I find to do that.
Yeah, that's super true.
Hmm.
Definitely judge myself more than
Yeah.
other people.
Like, okay, I'm going to be fully transparent here, like standing in front of the mirror and pulling the skin on my neck back. I just have to add because it's true. It's like, well, yeah, I'm 68. I got some loose skin on my neck.
Or the judgment that this person was talking about of the fact that we less act less than sometimes or have
Yeah.
less than thoughts. So, yeah. All right. So the next question is multiple questions within a question. So I think we might need to break it down into a few. I've been noticing a lot of conversations critiquing Reiki, calling it New Age, criticizing the hierarchy, and even questioning its legitimacy as a healing modality. I'm also reflecting on building a Reiki business and my own integrity in building a Reiki business. How do you feel the balance between respecting lineage and avoiding gatekeeping? And how do you approach concerns about cultural appropriation in Reiki? Thank you. I think we'll break it down to the first part, around uh, the aspect of it questioning its legitimacy as a healing modality, New Age, and then we'll go into the other parts of the question. I think that that's always going to be true. And um, I think you receive it from different aspects of our current society. You can receive it from a religious aspect, you can receive it from a scientific aspect on either sides of those spectrums. I think you just have to, kind of decide on whether you whether it's I mean, sometimes it's hard to not let it bother you, but I know that's been a part of my path is just releasing those judgments from either side because I've seen it work countless times. On top of it, there is scientific research around its effectiveness. So we do have scientific studies that show its effectiveness as a stress reduction modality, as a pain management. modality. It helps with medication uptake, duration of injuries, all of those kinds of things that there is actually evidence around. It's used in hospitals all around the country, and in fact, part of it is growing kind of exponentially. It's growing by a lot. It's being recognized as an integrative therapy in a lot of different medical settings. So, and veterinary settings, it's being taught in the vet schools, like in Brazil, as a part of the curriculum. So, there's a lot of places where it is actually being legitimized. And so, also, we are very aware of the noise around that as well. I think as you kind of uh, have years within the practice, and maybe you do, maybe it's been something that I've worked on in myself that I know that it doesn't really bother me as much anymore because I've lost the attachment to it. And that can be harder for some people than others because you might have noise closer to you than I do necessarily. Like if you live in a community where the noise is really loud, or your family and the noise is really loud about how it's not legitimate, how it might be wrong to do, all of those kinds of criticisms that any energy healing modalities can receive. Um, then it's easier, it's easier for me to say that than for some, just because of those realities that we have of our life circumstances. For me, it's like, oh yeah, that okay, thanks. When people do criticize it as an energy healing modality. I do know too that there has been a little bit of an uptick with some people, especially on social media, that criticize it, that are actually in these metaphysical, spiritual modalities too. There has been a little bit of an uptick on that. I think for that, there is just some loud voices in that space that really don't understand the nature of Reiki energy. Reiki energy and its mainstream knowledge of it is actually growing at a really, really fast rate. There is, you know, industry research that has been done around that, and it is actually growing at a pretty substantial rate. I'd have to pull up that research to know exactly what that is. I don't know it off the top of my head. So, contrary to some of those loud voices, and the viralness of their videos and things like that, that it is actually the opposite, that it is growing. Um, so because of the other things around it, because of the fact that it is easy to do, because of the fact that it's being integrated into hospitals and medical facilities and scientific research and things like that, it does help with that aspect of it, regardless of what some people personally say about it. So, Colleen, I don't know if you want to add to that part of the question before we move on to the other parts of the question.
Just a little bit. I want to mention Center for Reiki Research so that people know where to specifically look for qualified research studies. But also, I've learned to stay out of those spaces of criticism. I've been doing this for over 25 years now, and I've been through it all from family estrangement to criticism from community to religious kind of ostracizing me.
Mm.
Uh, I can't go quite as far as persecution, but you know, close. So, um, and from that end of it, first of all, as Robin said, we've experienced the results, and the results are in. The other thing to understand is that Reiki itself is the energy. Then I think the next part of your question is about the system that is developed through various lineages. So the techniques each lineage uses, the practices of the lineage that each, or the practice, the Reiki practices that each lineage teaches about how to connect to the energy and how to work with the energy to heal. So I think that will segue into the next part of the question.
I'll go ahead
Go
and
ahead and read it.
reread. I'll go ahead and reread that part of the question. I'm also reflecting on my own integrity and building Reiki business. How do you view the balance between respecting lineage and avoiding gatekeeping? So go
Well,
ahead.
one of the things that I think I've observed with that part of it, again, having been doing this for 25 years, longer than that, and doing this work for a length of time, there's an evolution not only in Reiki energy, but in the awareness of integrative medicine, whole body medicine, spiritual healing, energy healing. And it's no different than some of the experiences of acupuncture, yoga, massage. In my day, massage was strictly, a sex worker type of a situation when it first came out. And now we see massage in all different ways. Yoga can get these same kind of criticisms. Acupuncture for sure, and it's a 4,000-year-old modality. But you see it in so many different things. And truthfully, from my perspective and working with the different lineages, it's all evolving. We are remembering these practices. These are not new. This is not Reiki practices from the 1920s, creating a lineage that Usui Sensei developed was to be able to share the energy, to be able to teach it, to be able to share it with others. That was the original intention for him, was how do I share this in the world? And he gave that as a very specific instruction. Well, then when you look at the evolution of it and why it made its way through its development as a practice, again, you've got the energy and then you have the practices, the structure of it. So each of the lineages to me developed through what was normal during those times. So Usui Sensei practiced a very spiritual style of Reiki, an intuitive style of Reiki. Then Hayashi practiced a very medical style of Reiki. Mrs. Takata was practicing Reiki here in the West during World War II as a Japanese woman in Hawaii and post World War II. And so she developed Reiki in particular ways. And then from my perspective of it, having gone through the evolution of it from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, that a lot of the reasons and the ways that the lineages were developed was because those were normal mainstream, not mainstream, let me take that back, because it wasn't it was definitely wasn't mainstream like it is now, but they were normal belief systems and practices during those times. So for instance, when I first learned Reiki, it was a very authoritative style of Reiki. That outside authority still telling us how to practice it, how to do it right, and how we were doing it wrong if we didn't do it according to what they said was the right way to practice it. But that was normal. In my generation, I'm 68, in my generation, in the 90s, the 80s and the 90s, it was normal. We were still transitioning from that outside authority telling us what to believe, how to do things, how to earn it, how to deserve it, how to practice things. Then we came around to some full circle when it was discovered that Usui Sensei actually practiced a spiritual intuitive style. And that opened the door for the next level of evolution with the lineages. So each of the lineages, there's, for instance, where Usui Holy Fire, world peace. lineage. The other lineages might be Rainbow Reiki or Jikiden Reiki or um, Reiki Shiki Ryoho or Reiki Alliance. There's so many different lineages, and each of the lineages teaches particular techniques and styles that they use. And some of them do have some very specific rules and ways of practice. What I think is that Reiki energy itself, Reiki energy itself orchestrates how the students and the lineages line up. So for instance, the very first lineage I learned in was very strict. Then when I studied with William Rand with the ICRT, he has a very much of a Reiki your way style of teaching, like learning how to let Reiki teach us our way, our inner truth. And so we're moving from that outside authority into the inner authority, and that is what Reiki is doing too. So finding the lineage that is a match for you, finding the lineage that you want to teach within or work within or build your business or your Reiki practice within, um, is one of the things that I feel is part of your own personal development and personal growth with it. I also think that we are truly, like, to me, this is what I can do to contribute right now in the world, is I absolutely believe in this part of human intellect. Our authentic intellect has these abilities. The world and the universe and creation is made with these energies, these frequencies. We have the ability to access them. We have the ability to expand that inner self, that inner truth, that inner knowing, and what that means for us living on the earth and in this world. And for me, I care deeply about participating in establishing these ways as normal human practices, normal ways that we engage with our life, engage with healing, engage with empowerment, because I want them available for the future. And I'm going to go ahead and say this part of it. We have come out of centuries of persecution for these abilities. And we have come out of, in Scotland, they just created an official registered tartan for the witches that were burned in the 1500s, pardoned them. And those were healers, those were people with these abilities, those were the wisdom keepers, the midwives, the herbalists. We have to reestablish this. Let me take that back. I want to reestablish this. This is important to me, that these practices, this intellect, these ways are safe, first of all. I don't know if we'll ever be without criticism for it or controversy around it. I mean, you see the other modalities, actually everything.
Yeah, say
It's
everything.
like, what isn't, It's like everything. So you have to pick it, but I've been through it. I totally understand where you're coming from. I've been through it. It's been a process. And like I say, I absolutely had family estrangement from it. So I've had the hardships. Robin really went through it, and from her peer circles growing up, not from our family, but her peer groups growing up in a very conservative town. So we're very familiar with what you're talking about and the discomfort and the discovery of which of the, not just lineages, but what does Reiki mean to you? And that's what I think is the biggest question in the middle of all this, is what does it mean for you and how you want to present it, the way that it adds that meaning from your inner truth, your authentic voice, your authentic authority. because that's the other big piece. In fact, I think we should do a whole thing on authentic authority and what that means, because that's the big one I had to work with growing up through the age of authority and growing up in a very authoritative family. So,
I one of the things that I also think within this is that in regards to your question of viewing the balance between respecting lineage and avoiding gatekeeping, I think that if you have that intention, it comes across in your messaging, because Colleen and I both have that as a part of our intentions within our business, that it's Reiki your way. To us, there's not one right way to express your Reiki or how you're called to it. We're very open to how people, what lineages that people want to be a part of, because it's how it connects them to the energy, the tools and techniques that connect them to the energy the most. And this is one that we connect to, and that's okay. So I'm not saying that it's a better than, it's just a lineage that we connect to, that delivers us to, as all of those things that we talked about earlier, that growth capacity, that expansion, that helping others. That's the other thing, because we're very, open-hearted when it comes to that. And as far as the gatekeeping question, with maybe from another perspective of that, of those business aspects. First of all, when you have a Reiki business, you still do a lot of free Reiki. There's all sorts of ways that you're doing free Reiki. There are, you're giving Reiki to people for free. You are, if somebody asks, can you send me Reiki on, Facebook group or something like that? Absolutely. You're sending Reiki during your different practices, like the World Peace Grid. You might be doing things like this, where you are doing Reiki aspects for free. We do podcasts and distance Reiki shares. You might do a local Reiki share. So everybody who has like a Reiki business, through social media, you might be doing tips and tricks and things that can help people using the Reiki energy. There's so many different ways that you are still being, resource oriented. I know that is a big part of Colleen and I's practice, is that we like to be resource oriented as well as having our business. And because we are, in general in our life, like to see that communion with our fellow humans, with the planet. Like, we like to be generous and help others. And that's the other thing about this, is that you don't question why massage therapists charge. You don't question why hairstylists charge. You don't question why um, acupuncturists charge, yoga studios charge, all of these other modalities. You don't question why they charge, and they should charge. They are providing a service. They are helping me. And for me, I appreciate that energy exchange. I do not expect that for free. I want to support them in their business and in these whole body ways, in these integrative ways that can help me. My naturopath, my acupuncturist, my Chinese medicine doctor, I support these ways because they have quite literally like saved my life and my health. And I believe in them so much, just as I believe in Reiki energy and what it provides to my life, how I've seen it help other people, how it has saved other people's lives as well as my own. So I believe in this as a modality. And if I didn't charge for this, if we didn't charge for this, we wouldn't be able to do it. I'd have a different job. I wouldn't be able to do sessions and classes and things like that. I would have to do it on the side. Um, and by charging for it, I'm able to do this full time, and I'm able to do these things full time, just as a massage therapist does, just as a hairdresser does. These are other needed services as well. And so And I do believe in them. I do believe in acupuncture and all of those things and the importance of them, and kind of relating back to Colleen's aspect of these, these ways that this wisdom keepers, the herbalists, things like that, that are important in our society, because of how they look at the world, how they help support us as people and human beings in the different ways that they do that. And so that's the aspect of charging money, that energy exchange. And then as far as like that gatekeeping aspect of it, you still will be doing a lot of things, for free, just through the nature of having a practice like this, just through the nature of the community, just through the nature of Reiki energy, because its supply is unlimited. So we can give a lot of Reiki, just because it's easy for me to do, to say somebody's requesting Reiki on social media, and it's easy for me to say, okay, take a moment and please send Reiki to this person. That's easy for me to do. I give it to friends, I give it to families, to situations. I send to people during world events, and things like that as well. And then again, social media, where you are giving tips and tricks, where you are doing Reiki shares in all different capacities that we do that. Maybe you volunteer. There's so many different ways that as a part of our practice we give free Reiki. So to me, that isn't really gatekeeping. What I'm doing in my business is providing a service so that people can learn Reiki and they can take it into their own life, and there can be more, and there can be more growth. And I'm okay with other lineages saying this is the right way to do things. If somebody is attracted to that, that's great for them. I am personally going to hold the frequency of however somebody connects into the energy that's best for them works. So it doesn't bother me that other people might have that perspective. To me, I find that kind of in an old style of philosophy. Um, and that isn't a resonance or a match for me, but it's not helpful to have judgment towards that. What is helpful is for me to hold the frequency of like, well, I'm so happy for you that that works for you and that connects you into a deeper, more authentic version of yourself. For the most part, I don't find that Reiki lineages are that way. I think most are open, and same as us, that it is, however connects us deeper into the energy, to ourselves. However, we can be Reiki on a deeper and deeper level every single day, and however that looks is right for each person. And so it's pretty far and few between of that kind of one right way idea. However, again, I don't have judgment around that. I just try to hold the frequency of whatever's right for anybody else. To me, that's how it changes. That to me, that's how that frequency is added to the world, and more people might um feel that frequency, because that to me is like kind of that love frequency of it. So that's what I would add to that part of it. Colleen, I don't know if you want to kind of talk about the cultural appropriation part of
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
sure. I want to add to it. Here's my practice of discernment in who I study with, and in that idea of the gatekeeping and the different lineages. Like Robin, I just find that people find the right lineage for them, and for some people that is a more strict style. For us, I don't resonate with that. I definitely need that, ability to find my own inner truth. Um, and so, but one of the things that we found with the podcast is some of the guests that we've had present themselves as very strict and like, here's exactly how you're supposed to do it. And so we've even been a little bit nervous, like what happens if, we really disagree with a particular thing. And 100% of the time, they have been absolutely lovely, open people with support for all the different lineages. Truthfully, you may see some of the noise with criticism across the Reiki community, but we are very in touch with the global Reiki community, the national Reiki community, the global. It is a huge support system for one another. And that takes us to cultural appropriation. In Japan, that is never even a thought of cultural appropriation. The people in Japan, the Reiki people in Japan, are very glad that Reiki has spread throughout the world. Yusui Sensei actually instructed everyone to spread Reiki in the world. And that was his first decision coming off of the mountain when he received the great Reiki light. And what you can know about that is the energy of Reiki. When you think about his very first decision, when he came down the mountain with his Zen master, and their discussion was that that he would share Reiki and spread it in the world. And that was an unusual decision at the time. It would have been more culturally normal for him to keep Reiki for himself as a family secret because it was very successful. And he was the opposite. He was this has to get spread in the world. It has always had that foundational energy within it. And it's very compelling to share it with the world. I think that's why many of us will say, boy, we did not know that Reiki was going to be this compelling and take us on this kind of a path to do this work at this level. Because the energy itself, and I really believe that very first decision he made is what has rippled through the world. And in my experience, we are in connection with people all around the world with Reiki. And I find the whole community to be very supportive of one another. When we are in gatherings, it is, a big love fest. There's not a lot of criticism. And yes, is there some of the human stuff that goes on? Just like we talked about earlier, we're still human. Um, but when you are in Japan, there is no discussion of cultural appropriation. In fact, there is a lot of cultural appreciation. And so if you can move into that, and when people talk about the cultural appropriation of it here in the United States, most of the time they actually don't really know the true history of Reiki and its evolution, and that Usui Sensei, the founder of these lineages, absolutely instructed us to spread Reiki in the world. Then I'm going to go back to the awareness again. Reiki is the energy, spiritually guided life force energy. It is greater than the lineages. It is greater than the human constructs that we put on it, all these cultural things that we are navigating through in such very serious times right now. And all of these questions and all of these, really inner depth looking at us and our integrity and our sincerity and the whys of it, and caring deeply about other people and other cultures. And really, when you think about the energy of Reiki, it's what came to us to answer us. When Usui Sensei went up on the mountain, he was asking the question, how do I find the state of peace within in all situations? And the energy of Reiki is what answered him. It brought him to the state of Anshin Ditsume. It brought him to the state of peace and purpose. He knew, because the energy itself showed him his purpose was to spread it in the world. That was decision one. And Anshin Ditsume, the the actual understanding of what that state of enlightenment is that he received when he received Reiki, is that ability to be in peace and to fulfill your purpose. And his purpose and decision right in that very moment was to spread Reiki in the world. And it's compelling. You may be going through that right now where you've got that compelling energy and then all these other questions showing up like, but what about this and what about this? And there is stuff to navigate through, just as like we know right now we are in serious navigation in daily life and global life. And I'm just grateful every day I have Reiki to help me do it. So some of that is, the cultural appropriation. The one thing I would add with it when I do go to Japan, probably out of anything, is learning more about their traditions, learning more about etiquette when I am in Japan, and making sure that I am aware of some of the things that I can do to just be more honoring of their culture and how I am when I am there in their culture. And one of the ways I can give you as an example of that is Usui Sensei's memorial stone in his gravesite. Here in the United States, it's normal for us to go to a gravesite. And, I know here in Portland, there are graveyards that have parks running through them, running tracks running through them. So that is a normal cultural behavior here. When we go to Japan, that is not a normal behavior. And they do not ask us, they ask us not to go to Usui's memorial and treat it as a place that we can spend time in and, take pictures of it. They have an entirely different way of practice there. And some of you listening from other countries may think, seriously, where you live, there are running tracks through your graveyards? Yes, people picnic in our graveyards. So, that's what I can do is be respectful of the culture, be respectful of their traditions, and also always treat Reiki and our practices with respect, with integrity, and check in with myself about that all the time. Probably, if anything, where I run over stuff is my enthusiasm. I can get really enthusiastic and, like it's almost like the idea. In fact, when I was becoming a licensed teacher and we had to send a letter of intention about why I wanted to be a licensed teacher, and in it it was like talk about your qualities and then talk about the qualities that you could use work on. And I said, well, my enthusiasm, it's my positive quality. And then on the other hand, sometimes it's like I run across the street without looking both ways because I'm so enthused and excited about what I'm doing. And so um, that would be out of anything. I think for myself, I can honestly say it's never a lack of integrity, but sometimes it can be an over enthusiasm. And I try to learn to pay attention to that. So.
All right. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. These were just excellent questions and conversations. And yeah, lots of love to everybody. And we will see you all next time.
Yes.